Hey guys, Lindsay here.
And Marissa.
And it is Friday, and here is our video for A Couple of Gays.
So, we missed a couple of Fridays. We really apologize for that, but this holiday was a really hectic one. We're going to tell you about what we did during our holiday, and then we're going to talk to you about how we argue, I think. Yeah. That's one of the topics that we've decided on.
Yeah.
But it'll all merge together.
So we basically drove to South Carolina from...
No, we drove to Wisconsin.
Well, right. So we're in Minneapolis, right? So then we drove to Wisconsin, and then after...
We stayed there for a day.
Yep.
We left at 1 p.m. in the afternoon,
yep,
as we had something going on in the morning, and we drove all the way to like 1 o'clock in the morning to get to Lexington, Kentucky.
Yeah.
That seems maybe a little bit long, only because we hit a bunch of traffic in Chicago.
As you always do in Chicago.
Per usual. And then from Lexington, though, we got so far that we were able to sleep in, and then we took off at 10, and we had a leisurely ride through Knoxville, then we met a friend in Asheville, and then we got to Greenville.
Yeah. Best
Thing about this story, Lindsay's parents, who are from Greenville, drove up to Wisconsin that day before for the event that we had before we had to leave.
Well, we've mentioned funeral. It was a funeral.
Yeah, it was a funeral. All right.
So
for the funeral. So we were actually both heading down to Greenville at the same time, which is quite weird. Now,
we like to pre-plan.
I'm a pre-planner, I am. So
when
I travel, and especially when we're traveling with dogs, and in the winter, you have to really think about making sure you slot out the hotels in many different places in case you have to stop, because not every hotel takes dogs.
And like weather things, or, just things come up.
So it's 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and Lindsay's dad, who's genuinely a good guy, he's trying to convince us to skip Chicago because it's going to be horrible, and to just drive down the whole state of Illinois.
Which, in our last video, is like one of our most horriblest...
That is the worst drive. First of all, I've planned my whole trip, and the hotels and everything I've planned on this other route. Plus, I know that there's weather coming in. So my theory was, on Friday, before it hits on Saturday, to get as far east as I possibly can, so that on Saturday, we have a short drive, and that drive will be maybe a little bit of rain. We finally say no. We argue a little bit about it, because I was a little irritated, because I knew what I was talking about. Long story short, their drive sucked, and it was in rain the entire time. We hit traffic in Chicago, legitimate traffic.
We hit it smack dab at rush hour.
It was bad, but we got through it, and then we breezed through Indiana, and we got to Lexington with just a little bit of rain. It wasn't horrible. It was a little foggy, but it wasn't terrible fog. And they keep calling us, being like, "Where are you? What are you doing? What are you doing?"
I know. My dad likes to, since we didn't take their way, they like to check, well, my dad likes to check up and compare. Yeah.
So,
which was hilarious.
What's the weather? Where are you? How's it going?
Traffic?
Is there any traffic? Long story short, we have a pleasant stay at the La Quinta Inn in Lexington. We sleep in. We get to Greenville around 4:35. We had lunch with a friend. Meanwhile, they're like stuck in Nashville. There's like a traffic all over. They're in pouring rain the whole way. And they get in about... 2 hours after us?
2 hours after us, and they had left around probably 8.
Lauren's husband is at home where we're staying, so we see him and we hang out, we get the dog situated.
We're basically waiting for them to get there now.
We drive to the Olive Garden, because they're going to drive right to the Olive Garden, because her parents have an extra, hour to drive after they have lunch or dinner with us. And they come in, and they're like, "That way sucked! Oh my god, it was horrible!" And then he comes trotting in, he's like, "Hey, well, yeah, I don't know. I guess that way might have been better. I just don't know." He wasn't like, "It's better." Anyways, that was amazing, and it made me feel great.
That was a really long story about getting down to Greenville.
I'm really sorry. But when we were in Greenville, it was boring. I mean, it's not boring. It's just like we were in Greenville, we hung out.
We hung out with the family. I mean, there's not a lot to say. I mean, we hung out with the family, we took walks, we hung out with our little niece, who's about almost 2, not quite. We had our dogs with us, so they were excited. I think they were hot, actually.
They were really hot. They were panting the whole time.
Yeah.
I felt like they were just hot.
And Christmas was fun.
Yeah.
I got to see my family a lot this year, which was nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like that, it's just...
It's being with the family. There
Yeah.
were no arguments. There were no fights.
Which I call a plus, because sometimes things have gone down and it hasn't been the funnest holiday. So that was good. The drive back up was okay. Well,
I hate driving back up.
we got stuck for like an hour and a half because we got lost in Greenville.
That was the worst.
That was horrendous because, you
I
get,
hate Greenville.
well, first off,
I hate Greenville. I hate Greenville.
first
I
off,
have to say.
I forgot because I had to work a little bit. My computer stayed on Central Time because I needed to correlate some stuff with my computer being on Central Time and not having it automatically change to Eastern Time. And I forgot, and we got up about an hour late. So we get off to a late start. It wasn't the greatest, but whatever.
But luckily, I packed all the night before.
Luckily she did. So we didn't have that much stuff. So, it wasn't that big a deal. But then...
First of all, they bring us in the back way to their house, which is fine. That's what my directions say. But the people who live there don't use that way, right? They use a different way. Her sister and brother-in-law try and tell us the quicker way to get out. But the name of the street they tell us and the directions don't correlate. And we're like, okay, instead of getting completely lost, let's go back the way that we came in, which is the back way.
That we have the directions for.
Except I'm irritated, so I don't read the directions correctly, and I'm like, keep going on this road, and it's not the right road, and then we don't find the correlate, streets, and then we find one of them, and so we try and deduct which way we should turn on it, and we turn on it, and we're totally lost. You're in the middle of nowhere. We don't know. We're mad. I'm mad. Lindsay goes, gets directions. And because the directions are so complicated to get out of Greenville, the guy is like, well, basically just get on this highway and then drive all the way too far west and then come all the way, or too far east and then come all the way west to hit 26. Which is like the long way, even though it's all the highway, which should take you through Greenville, but it doesn't. So we get on 385 or whatever it is, and I'm like, oh, hey, okay, our directions go from 385, so now we can go the right way. Then we make several other wrong turns while we're in, the city of Greenville trying to find the highway, which should be, easy. But then the rest of the drive was fine. We got all the way to Madison, which was good. But then Lindsay gets neurotic when she has to return the car, making sure we got the car in at the right time, which we were. We had plenty of time. But then she was mean to me the whole time. She's just, angry at me the whole evening.
I was concerned about our car.
Which we were in Madison. We were literally 4 hours away from home. We had to get the car back by 3. Because the guy gave us a deal. So we had to bring the car in when he worked. And he worked from 7 to 3. So, because when we got there, which was just about 1 o'clock, he was going to go take his lunch break. Right? And then he remembered that he had to, so he kind of stayed. Anyways, we got this deal and we had to do it. And we got back in plenty of time, had plenty of things. There were no issues whatsoever. Hertz was great. They gave us a great deal, whatever. And she's like the rudest. And then we get back. We take the train home. We walk back. And she's sweet as pie. Back to normal. Whatever. And I'm like, this sucks. She made me super mad and nervous. Anyways, when we fight, when we're not in a car.
That was a big rant.
It was, because you're being a jerk about it still again today. Anyways, point of the story. Normally when we fight and we're not in a car, we have to come to resolution. It's one of my rules when I started dating her. So we fight. I'm usually mean and angry. I don't like being sad, so I get angry.
And I usually just turn out sad and cry.
And Lindsay doesn't like to be angry, so she gets sad and cries.
That's...
And then we both pout in our respective corners, and we get angry and we stew. And then either one of us, usually me, although Lindsay does sometimes come, but usually me, goes and says, what's going on? I'm angry at you.
No, usually it starts with I'm sorry.
It does, but sometimes the sorry is not a true sorry. It's more like we have to have this conversation, so let's talk it out. Then sometimes we argue some more, and usually it ends in a hug and a snuggle.
Yeah, which is good.
I think we're constructive fighters. Usually when we fight, it's about another issue. We're feeling something, that's being displaced into a different realm, or triggers. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we have triggers that are weird, and this is something I really like to enforce with couples. I didn't do this in my first relationship either, but it is important to realize that arguments do not resolve themselves. They need to be resolved, or else those same feelings and those same topics will come up again in your next argument. So you actually have to actively resolve your argument.
Yeah. And it does help, though.
I didn't do that in my first relationship. When I came into a relationship with Lindsay, I knew what I needed to do to make it successful, and so I did it. And one of the things was this, because in my past relationships, I saw these arguments happen over and over and over again, and it wasn't healthy. And I knew how to solve it. I was smart enough to know how to solve it, but sometimes it just takes...
Well, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like when you're angry, it's hard to go to the person who you're angry at, or sad at, either case. Have a conversation where you're not being angry at each other. When you're already angry. I don't stay angry very long. Even when you think that I'm angry, I'm not actually angry, I'm just sad.
Yeah, and when I'm angry, I'm usually sad about something.
Yes, that is true. So, let us know in the comments if this was helpful, or like how you guys resolve your fights and all that jazz. It's not the funnest topic, but it is something that you have to do.
We tried to spice it up with a trip.
This has been our video for a couple of gays, and we will see you guys next week.
We promise.
Bye. Peace out.